What's going on, everybody? It's Barmine from Barmine Tech, and today we're going to be making our own home router firewall with Opnsense on a ZimaBoard. Before we do get into this, I do want to thank IceWhale for sending a ZimaBoard over for me to use for this video. We are going to use that on other videos and other projects, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So like I did say, IceWhale did send over the ZimaBoard, so of course I'm going to show it off, and hopefully everybody else wants to go grab one. I'll have the links in below to go get one yourself. This is a really good board to use for your home lab because it does have a lot of options that can go off of it. If you're not familiar, this is the ZimaBoard. It's a bit bigger than a Raspberry Pi. If you do want to compare one, I do have it right here. So I do have here's the side-by-side comparison of the Raspberry Pi. It is a bit bigger, but it has way more processing power to it and more options. If we start over here, I mean the biggest one right here is we have 2 NICs. It's super helpful because we work on the projects like we are today. We're going to be able to use Opnsense or pfSense or any of the other home router OSs you might want to use. We have 2 USB 3 ports, a mini display port, and the power adapter. If you do pick one of these up, make sure to pick up a mini display port to HDMI or whatever interface you're going to need. They do sell them on the site with the ZimaBoards. If you forget about it or you need one, you're going to grab it somewhere else. I got mine at Best Buy. If we flip it over, we have a PCI track, really nice because you could put like another NIC or maybe something else you might want to need. And we do have some SATA ports over here, so you can put 2 SATA hard drives onto this. And yeah, really nice setup, and this is a really nice board. Like I said, it's still about the size of my hand. I know I have big hands, but this does fit nicely. It is really nice because you can tuck this away in the corner. You don't have to worry about it. You can set it up. There's probably 3D print cases for like add-ons, so if you want to like make a NAS or anything else, it would be a really nice touch. And like I said, I do really want to thank IceWhale for sending this over for me to work with. I have done some projects in the past where I talked about Casa OS and some of the other options, and Casa OS does come on default for the ZimaBoard. So if you do like the Casa OS, you want to use it on the ZimaBoard, it comes on default. You don't have to worry about it, or you can flash anything else on there like Ubuntu, Debian, whatever you might want to do. Big thank you to IceWhale. I know I keep saying it, but big thank you to IceWhale for sending this over. They were a great partner to work with, and let's keep working on the project and set up Opnsense. Today we are going to be making the router for Opnsense completely off of a stock ZimaBoard. I'm not going to add any additional PCI cards to it because it does have 2 onboard NICs. So make sure to check out the links in the description to IceWhale and Zimaboard, and I'll have some other information on how you can get your own. So big thank you to IceWhale for sending that over so I could use that in this video. Now let's get right into it. So after we do get the whole install set up, this is what your dashboard will look like. This is the Opnsense dashboard. I have all my options, everything I can configure. But before we can do any of that, we do need to start off with just grabbing the Opnsense image. You just go over to Opnsense website and be sure that you don't type Opnsense. That's a different service. It's a whole different security vendor. Opnsense is Opnsense. Made the mistake a couple times and I was confused why it wasn't coming up, but make sure that you do Opnsense, and I'll have links in the description. And we do need to come over here and download Opnsense. Most likely you're going to be using an AMD 64 board. If you're not, sorry, out of luck. They have a few different options of how you're going to be grabbing it. The VGA should be fine, and then you can just click download, and then it might ask you to put in some information, and then you're all set. You'll have the image. From there, you could use Rufus or Belina Etcher because you do need to write the ISO onto a flash drive, so you're going to need a flash drive for this as well. And you can just go in here, you can grab the file. So I go in here, it does come up in a IMG, it's archived. So you do need to extract it, and then you can select it. You would select your target, and then you would flash it, it would write on, and you're able to get it onto your ZimaBoard. From there, before you power on the ZimaBoard, you are going to put the USB with the Opnsense image on it, and then you can power it up, and you can either connect it to a display adapter, which would probably be the easiest way to do it because you do need to see to get into the BIOS. And as it powers up, you're going to keep hitting delete, and that is going to be the key to get you into the BIOS. From there, you can get into the boot menu and select the USB drive with the image on it. I tried to record it like that, and I tried this previously when I was testing, but my display capture doesn't want to grab the BIOS off the ZimaBoard, so I can't really show you how it works. But it's just like when you go into the BIOS on any other computer, just hit delete, and then it'll bring it to the BIOS, and you can change the boot order to the USB drive with your Opnsense image on it. Now you can go through the installer like that, and it's going to be a little wizard in the terminal, and you can either not connect any interfaces and make it a little harder for yourself. You'll have to configure them later, or you can plug in both your interfaces that you're going to be using. They don't need to be actually going out. Like, this isn't going to be your live router once it turns on, so don't worry. So like I said, you can either configure the interfaces now and have something plugged in, or you don't. Either way you want to do it will work. I did it with both my network cables plugged in just to make it easier, so both interfaces would be up. That's the only difference it's going to make, so it's going to be easier to determine which one is which. It'll ask you which one you want to make your WAN and which one you want to make your LAN. So if you are doing it off of like the ZimaBoard or another similar board, you might want to do like an IPA, or an int, whatever the command is to see the interfaces. So you have an idea of which one's which, and then you can go through the process. But after all that, you're able to go through, and then you can go through the installer. It's really simple. It pretty much automates everything. And then afterwards, it might ask you if you want to turn on DHCP or if you want to establish the interface ID for like the LAN connection. And you could do that. It would make it a lot easier. So then you could just go right into the web interface. If not, you're going to have to go in through the console section, and you would have to change the interface that way. So let me show you that real quick. I want to show how to change the interface ID, but I have a little bit of issue accessing over SSH right now. So I found a write-up over here that has some pictures, so I was going to show you just how I'd like to do it. So over here you can see this would be the console screen you'll get when you do have you boot off of it through the display capture, or however you have it on your monitor or whatever. So you will see it's going to show you your interfaces. It'll show you your LAN, your WAN, and the configured addresses. And then you could also come over here, and it has the different configurable options. And the one that you're going to want to do is set interface IP address. So by default, I believe it has like a 192.168.1 dot whatever. And you probably are going to need something else. You could access it over your network. So right over there, you would just hit 2, and then it would prompt you to add the interfaces, the addresses you want to use, and you would be good from there. After that, you should be all set to log into your Opnsense. So for me, mine is 192.168.50.194. Yours is going to be whatever you just set it to. When you do connect, you're going to get a page like this, and the default user is going to be root, and the password is going to be OPNSENSE, Opnsense, and then you'll be able to log in, and then I'll show you what the page, we'll go back to the dashboard like I showed you earlier. So now we've gone through the whole setup, and we have Opnsense running. So this is going to be the first page you're going to see. We have licensing and the dashboard. You're probably going to get the dashboard by default, and it gives you a lot of good information right here on the dashboard. So you are going to get the system name, you have different versions, you can check for updates, you have your hardware information, our current stats for CPU usage, all this stuff, disk usage, memory usage. Over here on the right, we have the services that are currently running. So by default, it is a firewall router, so it is going to need, DHCP and other services running on it, so it is going to be running. Over here, we have our 2 interfaces. So like I said, here's that 1.1 interface. That's the one you're probably going to see. And then you'll have your WAN as well. Mine says IPv6 right now, which is okay. And then we have our 2 interfaces, our LAN and our WAN. Again, it's showing it over here. Oh, my head might be blocking it, but I think you can see some of it over here. You get the idea. So the first thing we're going to want to do is change the root password in the account setup like that. So we're going to come over to System, we're going to come to Access and Users. And you can see I already actually started with this config, and I have a new user made for me. We have the root user. So you would have just the root user, you'd come over to the pencil, we would edit it, and you can either disable it or you can change the password if you want. I just disabled it because I don't need a root user at the moment. I only need my account. So we do have that the root user has a default password, so you definitely want to make sure you change it if you're going to keep it not disabled, just so somebody can't brute force their way in. I'm going to keep mine disabled, and we're not going to worry about that. You're going to want to make yourself an account now, and we can just come over here to the add button, and from here we're just going to make yourself an account. So I'll make Barmine an account. You can set a password, and then we'll set a password again, and then you can just fill in the information about the user. So we could just fill in the name, you can put in an email, and then you can put in a comment. You can say admin, and then we could have the landing page change. But all this you could really leave default, other than if you want the user to expire. You could set it out pretty far. I think you might be able to leave it blank if you don't. Yeah, you can leave it blank if you don't want it to expire, but if you do, then you're giving somebody temporary access to your firewall. You could set it to expire, next week or whatever you might want. And then the only group we currently have is admins, so you would just highlight that, click the caret, and then you would bring it over so now that the new user is a member of that group. So you are probably making yourself the account, so make sure before you sign out and disable the root account to test your account. So I'm just going to cancel this one because I already have another account. We have the root account disabled because I already tested my account. So before you disable and you get locked out of the GUI or the whole firewall, make sure that your new user account works. So you can just come back over to lobby, you click sign out, and then I would just sign back in with my user account. You see I'm able to get into it, so I know I'm good that I can disable my root account. So I would come back over to users, have the root account, we're going to edit it, and I'm going to make sure it's disabled because I don't want somebody logging in with it. Click save and go back, and here we are. And you can see it gives references to what's what. So red is a super administrator, the grayed out one is disabled user, and if you have a blue one, it's just a normal user. I'm guessing it's like a viewer role. They can't probably make changes. So like I did lead off in the video, this is just going to be a kind of a brief overview. I'm not going to really go over the basics you really need to configure to get the firewall running. So I'm really not going to go over VLANs or VPN setup, but I am going to show how to do it. I'm just going to quickly go over it, but I don't have a current environment where I can simulate the VLANs and doing the whole VPN setup. So I'm just going to go quickly like, hey, here it is, and how to do it. So let's just start going through some of the other configurables. So we do have configuration, and then we can go over, we can set backups. So you can back up your firewall, which is a good idea in case you lose something. But the one we're probably going to want to focus on is the interfaces tab, and here we have LAN and WAN. And if you do add on additional interfaces, which you can, you would add them over here. So right now I'm in the LAN, and we do want the interface enabled, so it can reach out to the local network we're creating. Now it's going to pull the interface off the actual board so you're using. So like I'm using my ZimaBoard. This is the NIC that I'm currently using, because remember I have 2 NICs on the ZimaBoard. We can give it a description, so we could do internal LAN. Just so we know, or if you're splitting it up into more interfaces, let's say you're making a interface that's going to go off to IP cameras, so you can do IP cameras, or you can do, you're doing phones, you can do VoIP, whatever you might want to do. Or if you're splitting interfaces by rooms, you can do it like that. You can do the living room. But that's how you would set it all up. And then we can come over here, and you have some other configurable options, but if you're just working on probably the basic LAN, you're going to want to leave most of these default. Opnsense is really nice in the sense that if you come over here and you click on the eye, it gives you a description. So it's going to tell you what options are what. But like I said, most of these that are currently defaultly set up is probably how you're going to want to do it. That's how I'm going to do it right now. And we're just going to come down here. We can keep scrolling down. And you do have the IPv4 address you're working with. So like I said earlier, we did configure it so we can reach onto the page. But if you want to change it, or you need to change it sometime in the future, you just come over here and change the address and the subnet that you're using. I want to keep this, so I'm just going to keep it like this. And like everything else, I'm going to leave it default. So I'm just going to cancel this out and leave it like that. We do have our 2 interface assignments, but I do want to show one more thing of how to actually make a new interface. So like I was saying, you can make VLANs, and I'm not going to really be setting them up right now because I don't use VLANs in my house. But we are going to show you how you can set up other interfaces. So you can see over here now I have opt1. That's because I came over here to other, and these are the other kind of interfaces you can make, and here is the VLAN. So if you do need a VLAN, you can just come over here and you would click add, and we can do device. You can leave it blank and it'll name it automatically, and we can change it later. We can do the tag, we'll do 12, and you can select which interface you want to go out of. So your VLANs are going to be internal, so we're probably going to want to use the internal network. And then we could do another description, and we could do Barmine. And if I want to name it, I can, but I'm going to leave it default for right now. We're going to click save, but now it does need to get assigned before we can do anything with it. So we're going to come up here to assignments, and we have the new interface, and we're just going to come over here, and we're going to click add. And I did forget, you got to click apply after you make the new VLAN. So make sure you click apply so it adds it, and then you can come up here to interfaces, and we can select the new VLAN we just made. And now we can add it. So now you can see over here I have opt1 and opt2, and we can change it. So we have Barmine, or let's say this is going to be our VLAN for IP phones. We can do IP phones or cameras or whatever you might be doing, how you're going to segregate your network with different VLANs. So VLANs are definitely a good option, especially if you're going to be splitting out. Let's say you might have a guest Wi-Fi. You can put them on a VLAN so they're routed out and they're segregated from your regular network, so you don't have to worry about any risk. I'm going to click cancel over here, and that's the quick way to do VLANs and assign them so you have interfaces. So remember, you just got to come over to VLAN, you would just make it, come over to assignments after you apply it, and then just add it, and now you can come over here and you can configure it how you need. I guess I'm just going to quickly go through stuff. If there's interest, I can make more detailed videos on all the other options, like setting up VLANs or the firewall rules, the VPN, which I probably will in the future. I just kind of want to keep this video brief, so it's not an hour-long video explaining stuff. But if we do want to go into firewall rules, it is really nice. They kind of make like a grouping thing, so you can come into aliases and you can make an alias that would suffice like multiple groups. So if you want to have rules like tags for rules or elements for rules of, let's say, certain ports or certain hosts, you can make them in here in aliases. So then when you come over into rules, you can make like LAN rules or a floating rule, and you can come in here and make them really quickly. So that would be the difference. So we do have rules and then aliases. So remember, they are two different things. The rules are going to be the actual rules for your firewall. We can come into LAN and we can click add, and this is how we would set up a firewall rule. I'm not really going to go into detail on this right now, but it is just how you would set it up. You know, you could say if you want to block the traffic or reject the traffic or allow it through, you could disable rules, and then you could configure it how you need, whether it's internal, external, whatever it might be. Of course, we have VPN off of the Opnsense box, so we could either use an IPsec tunnel or use an OpenVPN tunnel. IPsec is nice because it is a bi-directional, so we can do a site-to-site VPN with that one, or you can use OpenVPN. You can do site-to-site with OpenVPN, but it's a lot harder, and I don't think it would work properly like this setup. And other than that, we kind of just have the simple stuff, like we have DHCP4, so you can enable the DHCP server on the Opnsense box. So if you didn't do it in the setup, you could do it over here, and then you can set your pool and anything else you might need. You know, your DNS servers, so if you run like a Pi-hole or AdGuard, you can put it in here. The domain name, really don't need this stuff for a simple home network. And then you would just click save, and it would start the DHCP server. We also could do static leases. So if you did want to make a static lease, if you had devices already set up, you could do it through here. It would show the connected devices. I don't have anything connected right now, so I can't show you. But there is another way that you can set up the static leases for devices, and I'll show you that right now. So if we come back over by DHCP4 and we click on LAN, scroll all the way to the bottom, there's going to be DHCP static mappings for this interface. And let me just move my face real quick. So now you can see, and we can come over here and we can add leases manually. So this is a little bit more tricky because you do need to have the physical MAC address and the information you're going to give it. If you do it the other way off of leases, it'll show the current devices and you can just grab it that way instead of having to grab the MAC address. So probably want to do it this way if you come back over here, because it's just easier than bringing that MAC address over and having to worry about mistyping it. There are some other options we could do. You know, we have an IDS, we also have OpenDNS, Unbound DNS, and you could also set up a web proxy if you want. Well, I know this was a really quick one, and I kind of just briefly went over everything, and there is one more option if you did want to configure it more concisely. You can come over to System and click Wizard, and then you can click through here and it'll actually go through the wizard to configure some of these options that I just showed you. We'll just click through really quick. Like we can set our MTP server, our time zone, if we want DHCP, if we need to spoof a MAC address, like if you're using Opnsense in place of your ISP's router, you probably need to spoof the router that they gave you so it continues to connect. I know my friend that runs this, he has to do this for his Opnsense box to get an IP from the ISP. But we can just keep clicking through here. We can set the LAN IP, which we also did manually. Now we can click next. We can change the root password. We disable this account, and it'll be the same thing. And then we just have to reload the setting. So it's just another way to change around for the wizard. I know this was kind of a lot and a little bit of a video, but Opnsense is a really powerful firewall. It's a really good home router or firewall you can run, especially if you have a piece of equipment like the ZimaBoard to run it with. I really do want to thank IceWhale for sending that over. It was really helpful in this project, and it's going to be helpful in a lot of my other projects that I want to work on with this board. So be sure to check out their site, and I'll have all the links in the description and any information that's going to be needed for it. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to stay tuned because there are going to be some more Opnsense videos in the future. I kind of want to give more detailed breakdowns of like setting up the interfaces, the VPN, and all that stuff. And I just want today's video to be a brief overview of